So in yesterday's class, we had discussed about how acid is being formed inside your body and how acid is regulated inside the body. What are the mechanisms through which acid production is increased and what are the mechanisms through which acid production can be inhibited. All right. Both of them are very important for you to understand how these drugs will work in today's class. Now, if we talk about the drugs that are um, used in PUD for protection from acid, any damage, acidic damage to your ulcers and all of that. There are five main classes. One of those class will include antibiotics. I'm not going to discuss that because we've already discussed them in the previous chapter. Those antibiotics which are used in PUD specifically include metronidazole, amoxicillin, and clarithromycin. Okay, so these three are generally given along with the drugs that I'm going to tell you. ठीक है, supplemental देते हैं especially in case the patient test positive for H pylori infection. अगर H pylori infection है तो ये पक्का देना, नहीं तो जरूरत नहीं है, कभी कभी नहीं देते. Okay. Now the first class that we'll be discussing in drugs used in POD will be antacids. Now antacids can be of two types. You can have systemic antacids and you can have non-systemic antacids. Systemic antacids जो है, for example we have sodium bicarbonate. They will get absorbed inside your blood and they cause systemic alkalinity. 1 second, I'll show you. देखो, systemic antacids, once they are getting absorbed inside your body systemically, they will cause systemic alkalosis. So they don't exactly, how should I put it, they will stop the action of gastrin one way or the other. Okay, but there are a lot of side effects associated with systemic antacids. That is why they are not used a lot. All right, even though they are very rapidly acting, they'll act very quickly, and but they are very short acting. They'll not act for a long period of time. The side effects associated with it can be quite bothersome. Especially, you cannot give it in patients who have any cardiological problems because sodium bicarbonate, once it gets absorbed inside, it will react with the HCl of your stomach. Okay, eventually it will enter into your blood, it will circulate around, it will reach to your stomach and it will get secreted inside your stomach. Okay, once it is inside your stomach, it is reacting with the HCl that is present inside your body, inside your stomach. Also it will try to stop systemic acidosis. Okay, now, once it is reacting with that HCl, it will make a salt, which is your sodium chloride. The problem here is sodium chloride gets absorbed through your intestines. Sodium chloride, as it is passing through your duodenum and your small intestine, it will get absorbed. And this will cause an unnecessary increase in osmotic pressure because sodium is increasing. The amount of sodium inside your blood is increasing. That can be harmful to patients who have cardiological problems. Especially, it is contraindicated in patients who have congestive heart failure or ischemic heart disease or hypertension or any other. It will even cause problems in patients who have arrhythmias. Okay, because increased amount of sodium present in your blood can create problems in proper rhythm of your heart. Now, another side effect that can occur with systemic antacids is that because when they are reacting with HCl, they are also making carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide will cause flatulence, flatulence as in gases. Other than that, whenever excessive amount of carbon dioxide is present inside your stomach or released inside your stomach, it can cause perforation of ulcers. Okay, the ulcer base, which is already, let's suppose the patient's stomach has already been damaged with ulcers, there are already ulcers present on the stomach, you are essentially creating more damage. So that is one problem that can occur with carbon dioxide, with systemic antacids. As it is releasing carbon dioxide, that carbon dioxide will start to hit those ulcers, and whenever it is hitting those ulcers, it will start to perforate those ulcers even more, deepening the damage even more. The patient will have flatulence as well as belching in the sense, uh, they'll start, they'll feel very full, they'll not be able to eat properly. उसको हिंदी में डकार लेना बोलते हैं belching को. I'm not sure whether you know or not. If you eat a lot of food, you'll start how should I call it? It is called belching in English. Essentially, you'll start burping quite a lot. Okay, and it'll be a very uncomfortable feeling. I'm sure sometime in your life you must have experienced it. If you eat a lot of food, let us suppose you go to a relative's place and they feed you a lot of food, what will happen is for a little while you'll start walking like a penguin. You'll not be able to walk properly, and your tummy will be completely full. At that point of time, you'll constantly start belching, and even sometimes when you are not feeling well, let us suppose you have some infection or something like that, stomach infection, food poisoning or something, at that time also you'll start belching, wherein you'll start having sour burps and things like that. So belching is that, essentially that is caused by carbon dioxide. A lot of problems with systemic antacids, not used very frequently. Another big problem with systemic antacids is that uh, because it is causing systemic alkalinity, systemically it is causing alkalosis, and it is decreasing systemic acidosis. Okay. So as a rebound, what will happen is sometimes gastrin levels will increase way too much. Whenever pH is increasing more than normal, what will happen is gastrin levels will get stimulated and overproduction of gastrin might occur. That will lead to rebound hyperacidity. That is another problem with sodium bicarbonate or systemic antacids, essentially. Okay. Now coming to non-systemic antacids. Non-systemic antacids are much more straightforward. So non-systemic antacids may, though important ones are aluminium hydroxide and magnesium hydroxide. Okay. Now, both of these, what they will do is they are insoluble compounds. They will not get absorbed systemically, hence the name non-systemic antacids. You have to chew it and you have to swallow it. It's essentially all antacids you'll have to chew and swallow. They'll not be absorbed very well. You have to chew it. So, specifically, if we talk about aluminum hydroxide, this is a very slow-acting compound. Once you consume it, it will directly go into your stomach and it will react with aluminum hydroxide will react with HCl and it will neutralize the acid. Okay, that is how it is working. It is directly going to your stomach and it is neutralizing the acid that is present in your stomach. It is not entering your systemic circulation, not creating any other problems. It is directly going into the lumen of your stomach and it is reacting with the hydrochloric acid present inside your stomach. Okay. Another advantage of aluminum hydroxide is that it will cause it will make a protective layer around your ulcers. Okay, it will forms protective coating over ulcers. It will not just specifically target ulcers, it will simply cause a protective layer like formation on the whole of your stomach, inside of your stomach. So that aluminum hydroxide is only acting with hydrochloric acid and it will not let hydrochloric acid react with the tissues of your stomach anymore. The lumen, the epithelium which is present on your stomach, usse react karne nahi deta. Okay, that is another advantage of giving aluminum hydroxide. And aluminum ions, Al3 plus ions that are released inside your stomach whenever this fellow is reacting with hydrochloric acid. Aluminum ions have the property of relaxing smooth muscle. Smooth muscles inside your stomach. What happens with this? Whenever smooth muscle is being relaxed, gastric emptying time delays. Time is delayed. Okay. Even though it causes a little bit of constipation, gastric emptying time will be delayed. यहाँ पर advantage ये है कि it will not let duodenal ulcer occur as aggressively. Now you already know if excessive amount of acid is present, it will flow down into a duodenum, cause duodenal ulcers. यहाँ पर your aluminum ions are relaxing smooth muscles and they are decreasing gastric emptying time. But this decrease in gastric emptying time, think about it. अगर peristalsis slow हो गया, that patient will have constipation. This way can also lead to constipation. That is one problem with aluminum hydroxide. Okay. Another problem with aluminum hydroxide is that it might react with phosphates in your body. Okay. PO4 3 minus, phosphates that are present inside your body, which are very important for your bone health and your teeth health, those might react with aluminum make aluminum phosphate compounds, and it might cause hypophosphatemia. Especially if you are using for a very long period of time, it can cause hypophosphatemia, which will have a negative impact on the bones of that person. Okay. So once again, aluminum hydroxide, this fellow, any systemic non-systemic any non-systemic antacid, what it will do is it will enter inside your body. It will not get absorbed at all. It will enter inside your body. It is not getting systemically absorbed. It is directly reacting with the HCl in your stomach, and it is neutralizing it. One point. Second, it will form a protective layer around your stomach, specifically protecting your ulcers. Third, it will relax smooth muscles. Aluminum ions have the capability of relaxing smooth muscles, because of which gastric emptying time will be delayed, which is good in a way, but bad in the sense that it will cause constipation. Fourthly, it will aluminum ions or aluminum hydroxide itself have the capability of reacting with phosphates, leading to hypophosphatemia, especially on prolonged usage, which can be negative on the person's bone health. Then coming to magnesium hydroxide. Magnesium hydroxide has a quick action and it has a very prolonged action. It will act very rapidly and it will act for a long period of time. Magnesium salts can also be used as osmotic purgatives, meaning magnesium salts are given in case the patient is having constipation. Okay, so it will be the exact opposite of aluminum hydroxide. This fellow will have a laxative effect or a purgative effect, because this is increasing gastric emptying time, increases gastric emptying time. Okay, that is not the correct abbreviation, I'm just writing it like that. Okay, it will increase gastric emptying time, because of which you will also have, some patients will have runny stools and things like that. Now it will work the same way. Antacid dose will, this magnesium hydroxide directly reacts with hydrochloric acid, um, inhibits the function of hydrochloric acid. It will neutralize hydrochloric acid. Now antacid dose that you give of this thing might cause mild diarrhea. Okay, and prolonged usage might cause hypermagnesemia. If you use it for a very long period of time, magnesium ions will start accumulating inside your body, and it can cause hypermagnesemia. Okay, increased amount of magnesium in your body. That is why now magnesium hydroxide, say we were having a problem of diarrhea, right? And with aluminum hydroxide, there is a problem of constipation. What you can do is you can give a combination of antacids. Antacid combo of magnesium hydroxide plus aluminum hydroxide. ये कॉम्बिनेशन दिए तो यू आर नेगेटिंग ईच अदर्स साइड इफेक्ट्स. ठीक है, you will get quick and prolonged action from both of them. And what will happen is, because magnesium hydroxide was causing mild diarrhea, this fellow was causing constipation, slight constipation, they will cancel each other out. ठीक है, that fellow is causing constipation, this fellow is causing mild diarrhea. So if you come to middle ground, you will have normal peristalsis. ठीक है, एक is causing increased gastric emptying time, the other is causing decreased gastric emptying time. So because of that, gastric emptying time will become normal. ठीक है, you will generally use these two with hyperacid. In case of hyperacidity, you can use it in PUD. You can also use it in GERD. GERD is another condition that we'll discuss after PUD. Gastro, we'll discuss about it later on. Take a reflux disease bolte usko, but discuss about that later on. You can use these antacids in GERD as well. Okay. Now, all antacids should be chewed. As I told you, you have to chew it and swallow it, as they do not disintegrate well inside your stomach. Okay. Generally, it is better to give gel, antacid gel, than antacid tablet. Okay. Generally, one dose is given after food, 1 hour after food. You give this one dose 1 hour after food. Okay, and it will neutralize the acid for 2 hours. Okay, once you have given the antacid, it will neutralize acid production for at least 2 hours, or it will reduce the acid content for at least 2 hours. Okay, if you use antacids on a empty stomach, it the duration of action will be shortened, because after you eat food, what will happen is most of that acid will be used up by, see, the problem in PUD, one of the problems in PUD is that hyperacidity is occurring. Excessive amount of acid is being produced. You want to neutralize only that acid. You want normal amount of acid for your food to be digested and your food to be broken down. So what you do is, if you give it before someone has eaten food, it will only act at on a small amount of acid. It does not have the capability of neutralizing all the acid in your stomach. And even if it is neutralizing all the acid in your stomach, the duration of action for which that antacid will work will be decreased, because that drug is made to only act on acid that is left over after you have eaten food, not before you have eaten food. Okay, I hope you are understanding the difference. After you eat food, that food is generally reacting with the stomach, in the acid in your stomach, and it is being, that acid is being used up a little bit. Okay, and as the food starts going down into your intestine, after 1 hour, 1 to 2 hours, you give this dose of antacid. So whatever excessive amount of acid is left, only that will be dealt with the antacid. Okay, so it will exactly act on the hyperacidic part. It will not act on the normal acid part. Okay, so that is the usage of antacids, how you use it judiciously. Next, we have H2 blockers, H2 receptor blockers. So these are antihistamines. Okay, be very careful. I specifically mean H2 receptor blockers, not H1 receptor blockers. H1 receptor blockers ke bare mein we'll discuss some other time. When we discuss about cholinergic drugs, that time H1 receptor blockers will come, because acetylcholine will act on H1 receptor rather than histamine itself. Okay? They will conform with acetylcholine. Okay, they will have a cholinergic effect. So anyway, here antihistamines I specifically mean H2 blockers. Now H2 blockers में आते हैं cimetidine, ranitidine, famotidine, nizatidine. तो बस है. Okay, the commonly used ones are cimetidine and ranitidine. ठीक है, Rantac that you see quite a lot in hospitals is ranitidine. Okay, now the dose will vary depending on different drugs. Uh, Generally, you can give it just before bed as well, before they sleep, because see, one big problem with H2 receptor blockers will be it can cause sleep, it can cause drowsiness, and it can cause sleep. So generally H2 receptor blockers are given to patients when they are not active, in the sense that you will ask the patient to not take it when let us suppose when they have to drive or things like that. They can take early in the morning if they have to go out, but they have to be very careful. Generally it is preferred that if they take it directly before bedtime. Okay, जब acid production be stagnant रहता after you have eaten your food, your digestive system will become very active, and there's a lot of production of acid at that time as well. So whatever leftover acid is present, hyperacidity especially, can be countered, and you will not have the side effect that the patient is sleeping during the day. Okay, especially you will ask them not to use heavy machinery and things like that when they are on H2 blockers. Now if we talk about the mechanism of action of these drugs, these drugs will competitively inhibit histamine. Okay, competitively inhibit histamine action on H2 receptors. So yesterday when we were discussing about one of the actions through which this thing acid is being produced, I remember telling you, whenever enterochromaffin like cells are stimulated, they are secreting histamine, and that histamine is going to the parietal cell. It has a receptor, H2 receptor, where once it is stimulating the parietal cell, HCl formation is occurring. These H2 blockers will compete with histamine for that site. So essentially, they are performing competitive inhibition. Let us suppose this is the H2 receptor, okay, on the parietal cell. Let us suppose this is the parietal cell, and that is the H2 receptor, and this is histamine. Okay. What your drug will do is essentially it has a higher affinity towards that receptor than the histamine molecule itself. So before this histamine molecule can come and attach, this drug will come and attach here, and it will take up the position on that receptor. ठीक है. It will have the same configuration as histamine, but it will not perform the same function as histamine. Okay, it will block that receptor, and because it is blocking the H2 receptor, histamine cannot attach to the receptor anymore, H2 receptor, and it will not be able to give you HCl. Essentially, because of this, what happens is HCl production decreases. Okay, and you will see that almost 70% of HCl production decreases within one dose. Okay, uh, close to 70% of HCl production decreases with one dose. With by giving only a single dose, you will see a significant decrease or significant improvement in the patient's condition. You will also see decrease in pepsin levels. Pepsin is also another um, enzyme that I didn't discuss yesterday that also has an effect on HCl. It can also cause production of HCl. Anyway, uh, now because this is directly decreasing HCl, you can give it for single dose within a day or things like that. Sometimes you can also give it BD. Generally OD दे सकते हैं, BD भी दे सकते हैं. अब in some patients who don't have, you know um, who are comfortable with being a little drowsy during the day, it is fine to give it BD. If no, they are driving or they are doing some heavy machinery things, generally OD कर देते हैं उसको. You use a different drug instead of cimetidine and ranitidine. You give a OD dose and बस वही देते हैं. ठीक है. Generally, these drugs are well absorbed and very rapid. They act very, very quickly. Cimetidine will work for about 5 to 8 hours. Famotidine works for 12 hours. ठीक है. Excretion is through urine. All right. Now, there are some problems with some drugs, specifically cimetidine. Cimetidine, as we had already discussed earlier, I'm sure you must have recognized this fellow with a lot of drug interactions. Cimetidine is a microsomal enzyme inhibitor. Okay? It inhibits cytochrome B450 microsomal enzyme, and because of that, it interferes with the metabolism of with a lot of drugs. Okay? That is another reason why cimetidine cannot be given with other drugs. And other than that, this has anti-androgenic effect. Anti-androgenic effect as in, what will happen is this fellow will increase prolactin levels. Plasma prolactin levels will go up. It will inhibit estrogen metabolism inside the liver. Because of its estrogen production, or rather than estrogen production, I would say estrogen content inside your body will increase. Now bear in mind that even men have a little bit of estrogen and women also have a little bit of testosterone. यहाँ पर problem आ रहा है in men because it is creating an anti-androgenic effect wherein it is suppressing the, you know testosterone levels, because यहाँ पर prolactin levels बहुत बढ़ जा रहे हैं and estrogen metabolism नहीं हो रहा. Estrogen levels will start to go up. So what will happen is, on prolonged usage of cimetidine, the patient's sperm count will go down. Decreased sperm count, the patient might have impotence, loss of libido. Okay, essentially sex drive will go down, impotence and decreased libido. ठीक है. Other than that, cimetidine can cause confusion, delirium, some neurological effects होते because it can cross BBB. What will happen is, it can cause, especially in elderly people, it can cause confusion, delirium, and hallucinations as well. Okay, that is why generally cimetidine is not preferred as much. It can cause rashes as well. Technically, rashes are very common with all H2 blockers. Okay, they have the potential of causing rashes in almost everyone. That is why ranitidine is a better alternative when compared to cimetidine. This fellow, first of all, it does not have any androgenic effects or anti-androgenic effects. It will not suppress your androgenic functions. Androgens specifically refer to testosterone and its related products. ठीक है, testosterone, epiandrosterone, वो पूरों को androgens बोलते हैं. ठीक है. It does not have any anti-androgenic effects, or it does not have any CNS effects as well, because this fellow will not cross BBB. There are no effects such as delirium, hallucinations, and confusion. But there will be a little bit of headache, and there can be dizziness. Sometimes the patient will have rashes. ठीक है. You can use H2 blockers in case of gastritis, PUD, GERD. You can use it as a pre-anesthetic medication. ठीक है. Generally gastric acid secretion is decreased in order to prevent damage to respiratory mucosa. Whenever you are performing a surgery, आप क्या करते हैं, एक प्रोटॉन पंप इनहिबिटर या एनी एंटासिड, नॉट एंटासिड स्पेसिफिकली, यू विल गिव समथिंग लाइक a H2 blocker so that acid production for the duration of the surgery is decreased or almost minimal. क्योंकि क्या होता, whenever you are performing surgery, sometimes there can be aspiration that acid might reflux back into the esophagus, and there is a chance that that acid might enter into your lungs. That will create a lot of problem. It will create respiratory damage to your respiratory mucosa if it is being aspirated. Okay, so generally pre-anesthetic medication may include karte. Before giving the anesthesia itself, you will give ranitidine. When we discuss neurological drugs, I'll tell you what are anesthetics and what are pre-anesthetic medications, and in detail we'll go about that. But for now, just remember that this is used in PUD. You can use it in gastritis. You can use it in GRD, and you can use it as a pre-anesthetic. ठीक है. अब ये पूरे conditions में use कर सकते हैं H2 blockers को. Then we have PPIs, proton pump inhibitors. इन लोगों को PPIs भी बोलते हैं. Very very famous drugs. If you have ever been to a hospital, you will definitely see that in patients who have more than one drug or more than two drugs, at least one of these drugs will be a PPI. Pantoprazole, lansoprazole, omeprazole, ये क्या बोलते हैं, आपको बहुत अलग अलग, नाउ यू विल फाइंड सेवरल, राबिप्राजोल, यू विल फाइंड इट इन सेवरल ब्रांड नेम्स. पैंटॉप रहता, पैन रहता, अलग अलग ब्रांड नेम्स में डिफरेंट डिफरेंट हॉस्पिटल्स विल यूज विच एवर इज फीजिबल टू देम. बट प्रोटॉन पंप इनहिबिटर जनरली पक्का रहता, especially in patients who have polypharmacy. Polypharmacy essentially refers to a condition where the patient is being given a lot of drugs. Here I mean more than 5 6 drugs at one point of time. Okay, especially if you have ever been to ICU ward, or if you have ever been assigned to a ward where there are critically ill patients, even if they are not dying per se. Let us suppose they have comorbidities, diabetes, hypertension and heart disease along with some other condition. ऐसे कंडीशंस में 6 7 ड्रग आराम से रहते. ठीक है. स्पेशली इफ यू एवर हैव बिन टू ICU or IICU or MICU, any specific ICUs or even NICU, in those people, believe it or not, you will find drugs that will go on for 1 or 2 pages. ठीक है. So in one day those patients will will consume at least 10 to 20 drugs. So वैसे conditions में definitely proton pump inhibitors देना पड़ता. ठीक है. Because that can cause a lot of fluctuations in the acid levels, and you will have to stop those acid levels, and there can be a lot of drug interactions in between them as well. Anyway, now coming to proton pump inhibitors as well, as I was telling you, the drugs that are included will be omeprazole, pantoprazole, rabiprazole, and lansoprazole. चलो 4 बस है. ठीक है. Mechanism of action is that all of these drugs are prodrugs, so they themselves will be slightly inactive essentially. Let us suppose we talk about any one of these. Omeprazole की बात करें. Omeprazole, once it is entering inside your body, what it will do is, let us suppose this is your body. ठीक है. This is not the cell. अच्छा ठीक है. Why confusion? Once it is entering inside your body, in body, it will get converted into a product called sulfonic acid. ठीक है. This sulfonic acid will again get converted into sulfonamide. Sulfonamide irreversibly binds to hydrogen potassium ATPase. Irreversibly binds to and inhibits proton pump or hydrogen potassium ATPase. ठीक है. Is also called proton pump. So yesterday when we had discussed about all the mechanisms through which hydrogen chloride is being produced, I remember telling you there is a pump through which all the stimulus is being passed through. So this hydrogen potassium ATPase is responsible for making sure that hydrogen is entering into the lumen in exchange for potassium. You are essentially blocking that. One of the main ways through which hydrogen chloride. Without this, hydrogen chloride will never be formed. Okay. Now there are several pumps as such on the surface of your stomach. These will irreversibly bind and inhibit several of those hydrogen potassium ATPases, whichever are present inside your stomach. As a result, what will happen is there will be a 95% decrease in HCl. Okay. HCl, gastric acid secretion decreases by 95%. Okay. Most of the proton pumps that are present inside your stomach, they will be inhibited. Okay. And that too, it is irreversibly binding and inhibiting hydrogen potassium ATPase. Okay. So once again, omeprazole or any of these proton pump inhibitors, they will enter inside your body, they'll get absorbed, they are getting converted into sulfonic acid, then into sulfonamide. That sulfonamide binds irreversibly to hydrogen potassium ATPase present in your parietal cell, and it will inhibit the function of that hydrogen potassium ATPase. As a result, your hydrochloric acid is not formed. Almost 95% of hydrochloric acid secretion is decreased inside your stomach. Okay. Now we'll discuss more about these PPS in the next class.